I've never been the kind of person who enjoys traveling alone, but after months of stress at work, I decided to take a weekend off in a quiet, secluded place. I booked an Airbnb in a small town, far from everything. A rustic house surrounded by trees, perfect for unwinding. The host, Daniel, was polite in his messages, but mentioned that he wouldn't be able to meet me in person. "The key will be in the lockbox by the door," he wrote. I arrived in the late afternoon. The house was even nicer than in the pictures, well maintained, smelling of wood, with a wide porch that overlooked the trees. I found the key exactly where Daniel said it would be and stepped inside. Everything seemed normal at first. I dropped my bag in the bedroom, made some coffee, and stretched out on the couch. The place was peaceful, no traffic, no city noise, just the occasional bird song and the rustling of leaves in the wind. That first night, around 3 a.m., I woke up with an odd feeling. Not because of a loud noise or anything alarming, just a strange sense that something was off. It took me a few seconds to realize. The bathroom door, which I was absolutely sure I had left open, was now closed. I knew it had been open because, before bed, I had spent some time scrolling on my phone and had glanced at the hallway multiple times. I got up slowly, my heartbeat picking up speed. The Airbnb was small, a single-story cabin. I walked around, checking the windows and the front door, all locked. I tried to convince myself that maybe I had just forgotten closing it. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep well after that. The next morning, I convinced myself that I had just been tired and confused the night before. Maybe I had closed the bathroom door without thinking. I made some coffee, sat on the porch for a while, and tried to enjoy the stillness of the place. Before heading out to explore the town, I did a quick mental checklist. My bag was in the bedroom, my toothbrush was by the sink, my phone charger was plugged into the outlet near the couch. Everything exactly where I had left it. I spent most of the afternoon wandering through small antique shops, eating at a quiet little diner, and just relaxing. By the time I got back to the Airbnb, the sun was starting to set. As soon as I stepped inside, I felt something was different. I couldn't explain it at first, but then my eyes landed on the couch. My phone charger, the one I had left plugged in near the couch, was now neatly coiled up and placed on the coffee table. I stood there, staring at it for a long moment. I knew, without a doubt, that I hadn't touched it before leaving. I always plug in my charger first thing when I settle into a place, and I never unplug it unless I'm packing up to leave. A slow, creeping discomfort settled in my stomach. I checked the front door. Locked. Windows? Locked. Nothing else seemed out of place. No signs of forced entry. Maybe the cleaning service had come in? But that didn't make sense. Daniel never mentioned anyone coming by, and even if someone had, why would they move just one thing? I told myself it wasn't a big deal. Maybe I had unplugged it absent-mindedly. Maybe I was just being paranoid. That night, I double-checked all the doors and windows before going to bed. At 3:41 a.m., I woke up again. Not because of a sound, because of a smell. It was faint, but distinct. Cigarette smoke. I lay still, my heart pounding, as the realization crept over me. I was alone in this house, and I never smelled smoke before. I stayed completely still, barely breathing, listening for any sound in the house. Nothing. But the cigarette smell was unmistakable, stale and lingering, like someone had been smoking inside just minutes ago. Slowly, I reached for my phone and turned on the flashlight. My hand was shaking slightly as I scanned the room. Everything looked the same. My bag was on the chair, my shoes were by the door. Nothing out of place. But when I turned the light toward the small wooden desk in the corner, my stomach dropped. Sitting right there, next to the lamp, was an ashtray. I hadn't seen it before. And worse, it wasn't empty. A single cigarette butt, freshly crushed, sat among a few scattered ashes. I sat up, my breath quickening. I don't smoke. And I sure as hell didn't put that there. I threw off the blanket and stepped out of bed, every nerve in my body screaming that something was wrong. I moved carefully toward the ashtray, my pulse pounding in my ears. The cigarette was still warm. Someone had been in here. I checked the bedroom door, locked from the inside. I checked under the bed. Nothing. I rushed into the living room, flipping on every light as I went. The front door, still locked. Windows, still latched shut. I was alone, or at least, I should have been. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat on the couch, lights on, watching the front door like a hawk. I wanted to leave, but where would I go at 4 a.m. in the middle of nowhere? I kept telling myself I was alone, but I didn't believe it anymore. By sunrise, I had made up my mind. I threw my things into my bag, grabbed my keys, and left without looking back. I didn't even bother messaging Daniel. I just left the key on the counter and drove off. I didn't think about it again until a few days later when I opened the Airbnb app to leave a review. That's when I noticed something. Among the dozens of guest reviews, one of them stood out. It was from a woman who had stayed just a week before me. Great place, very clean. Only complaint is that I kept waking up to the smell of cigarette smoke in the middle of the night. Must have been coming from the neighbors. There were no neighbors. I booked the Airbnb on a whim. I had some vacation time saved up and just wanted to get away for a few days. The listing was perfect, a cozy little cabin, modern furniture, and surrounded by woods. The pictures made it look like something out of a travel blog, and the reviews were all glowing. The host, Lisa, was quick to respond to messages and even sent me a long welcome note with recommendations for local restaurants and hiking trails. Everything seemed great. When I arrived, the first thing I noticed was that the cabin looked exactly like the photos, but the area around it didn't. The listing had shown a neatly maintained yard, a small fire pit, and a clear, open view of the trees. But when I pulled up, the grass was overgrown, the fire pit was gone, and the trees were so thick they cast deep shadows over the house. It felt closed in. I brushed it off. Maybe the photos were from a while ago. Maybe the host just hadn't updated them. Inside, the place was clean and tidy, just like in the pictures. Same furniture, same warm lighting. I set my bag down, walked through the small living room, and opened the curtains to look outside. That's when I noticed the first thing that wasn't in the photos: a door at the back of the cabin. It was small, almost like a closet door, painted the same color as the walls. It blended in so well that if I hadn't been standing at just the right angle, I might have missed it entirely. I pulled out my phone and opened the Airbnb listing again, scrolling through the photos. No door. The entire back wall in the pictures was just a solid wooden panel. I stared at it for a moment. Maybe they had added it later? Maybe it was just a storage space? I reached for the handle. Locked. I tried the handle again, just to be sure, but the door was locked. That alone wasn't too weird. Maybe it was just a storage closet or a maintenance room. But as I stood there, my hand still on the knob, I felt it. A draft. A slow, cold current of air creeping out from the gap beneath the door, brushing against my bare ankle. I hesitated. The house was well insulated, and all the windows were shut. Where was the air coming from? I crouched down, pressing my hand to the floor near the gap. The draft was steady, constant. Not like air coming from a vent, more like movement. Like a space behind the door that shouldn't be there. I swallowed, standing up quickly. I didn't like this. Stepping away, I decided to ignore it for now. Maybe there was an unfinished room back there, or maybe it was connected to an exterior crawl space. Either way, it wasn't my problem. I spent the rest of the evening trying to shake off the weird feeling. I made dinner, watched a movie on my laptop, and told myself I was overthinking things. By the time I went to bed, I had almost forgotten about the door until 2:17 a.m. when I woke up to a sound, a soft scraping noise, coming from the back of the cabin, coming from the door that wasn't in the photos. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. The scraping sound was faint, but unmistakable. A slow, deliberate noise, like something lightly dragging across wood. I lay still in bed, straining my ears, trying to convince myself that it was just the house settling, or maybe the wind outside. But then it stopped. And 2 seconds later, it started again. Same sound. Same slow, deliberate motion. Not the wind. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to sit up. The room was dark, but my eyes adjusted quickly. The bedroom door was open, leading into the living room. Everything looked the same, but I could feel something was different. I reached for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and swung my legs over the bed, my heart hammering. I didn't want to go out there. Every part of me was screaming to stay put, but I couldn't just ignore it. I stepped carefully into the living room, the beam of my phone light cutting through the darkness. Everything looked normal. The couch, the small dining table, my bag still resting against the chair. Then, I turned the light toward the back wall. The door, the one that wasn't in the listing photos, was open. Not wide open, just a few inches. Enough. A deep, cold gust of air rushed out, chilling my skin. I had locked the front door, checked the windows. No one else was here. So how the hell was that door open? I took a step forward, trying to see inside. The gap was narrow, but I could make out stairs. A staircase leading down into complete darkness. This cabin was a single-story house. There was no basement in the listing. There wasn't supposed to be anything beneath me. And then, soft, slow footsteps. Coming up the stairs? I didn't hesitate. I turned, sprinted for the front door, and fumbled with the deadbolt. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped my phone. I didn't care what was outside anymore. I just needed to leave. I threw the door open and stepped onto the porch and froze. The yard was empty. No one at the front door. No one at the back. No movement, no sound. Just the quietest silence I had ever heard. Too quiet. My pulse pounded in my ears. My car was right there, just a few feet away. I forced myself to move, one foot in front of the other, refusing to look back. Then, just as I reached my car door, a new message. I didn't want to look, but I did. Lisa, thanks for staying. Let me know if you need anything. It was automatic. A generic, pre-written host message that Airbnb sends when a guest completes their stay. Except I wasn't supposed to check out until tomorrow. Except I never told Lisa I was leaving. Except my reservation had already been marked as completed. I didn't think. I jumped into my car, started the engine, and tore out of there. I never left a review, never reported anything. But a week later, I checked the listing again. It was still there. Same glowing reviews, same edited photos. Still no door. Still no mention of a basement. As if it had never existed. I booked the Airbnb for practical reasons, not a vacation. I was moving to a new city for work and needed a place to stay for a week while I sorted out my apartment lease. The listing was nothing special. A generic one-bedroom rental in a quiet residential neighborhood. The host, James, had good reviews, mostly short and positive. Clean place, easy check-in, would stay again. Wasn't expecting much, just a place to sleep and work remotely for a few days. I arrived late in the afternoon, let myself in using the keypad code James had sent me, and tossed my bags onto the couch. The place looked exactly like the photos, modern, neutral, kind of lifeless. Beige walls, gray furniture, a kitchen that smelled faintly of cleaning supplies. I had been working long hours leading up to the move, so all I wanted was a quiet night. I ordered takeout, watched some YouTube, and went to bed early. At 2:43 a.m., I woke up. At first, I wasn't sure why. No noise, no nightmare, just that weird, disoriented feeling when your brain yanks you out of sleep for no reason. I turned onto my side and squinted at my phone. The screen lit up, momentarily bathing the room in white light. That's when I saw it. A tiny, faint red dot, glowing from the opposite side of the room. I blinked, still groggy. The light was barely visible, small, recessed into the smoke detector above the closet door. My stomach tightened. I've stayed in plenty of Airbnbs before. I know smoke detectors have lights, but they don't blink. And I could swear that just before I fully woke up, it wasn't on. I sat up slowly, my eyes locked on the small red light. It wasn't flickering. It wasn't changing colors. Just a steady, quiet glow. I tried to shake off the unease. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe it was just a normal function of the smoke detector that I had never noticed before. But the longer I stared at it, the more I couldn't shake a single thought. What if it's not a smoke detector? I hesitated for a moment, then threw off the blanket and stood up. The bedroom was small, and within a few steps, I was right under the device. Up close, it looked normal. The same rounded white plastic as every other smoke detector I'd ever seen. But now, in the darkness, I could see something I hadn't noticed before. A tiny, pinhole-sized opening, just beneath the blinking light. My throat went dry. It wasn't a smoke detector. It was a camera. A cold wave of realization hit me. I had been in this Airbnb for hours, eating, sleeping, changing clothes. How long had this thing been recording? I stepped back, my skin crawling. My first instinct was to grab my phone and text the host, but I stopped myself. What was I even going to say? I needed to be smart. I took a deep breath and forced myself to think. The Airbnb had multiple rooms. If there was one camera, what were the chances that it was the only one? I turned my phone flashlight on and started searching. I checked the living room first. Nothing obvious. No suspicious lights, no weird devices. Then the bathroom. My heart pounded as I scanned the ceiling, the mirror, the vents. Nothing. Finally, I moved into the kitchen. I swept the light across the countertops, the cabinets, the small dining table, and then I saw it. A second camera. This one wasn't hidden in the ceiling. It was tucked into the corner of the bookshelf, barely noticeable behind some decorative knickknacks. And unlike the first one, the red light on this one was off. It was either disabled or worse. It had already stopped recording. I stared at the second camera, my pulse hammering in my ears. It was small, black, and wedged between two books, like it had been casually placed there. Not built into the house, not part of any security system. But that wasn't what made my stomach twist. It was the angle. The camera wasn't pointed toward the kitchen, or the front door, or anywhere that would make sense for security. It was pointed directly at the couch. More specifically, at the exact spot where I had been sitting for hours earlier that night, eating dinner, scrolling through my phone, completely unaware. I took an instinctive step back, suddenly feeling exposed. This wasn't some high-up security camera meant for general surveillance. It was placed deliberately. Someone had positioned it to watch that one specific spot. To watch me. A sick feeling crept into my stomach. My first thought was to rip it out, but I hesitated. If I removed the memory card, if I destroyed the camera, would the person watching know? Would they come back? I needed to think. And then, another thought hit me. If there were two cameras, what were the chances that there weren't more? I turned, my breath shallow, and swept my flashlight around the Airbnb again, scanning every corner, every vent, every fixture. I was just about to check the bedroom again when my phone vibrated in my hand. A notification. From the Airbnb app. I looked down at the screen, my fingers trembling as I unlocked my phone. It was a message from the host, James. "Hey, just checking in. How's your stay so far?" I stared at the message. My mouth was dry. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe he was just a normal host, doing normal check-ins. I couldn't ignore the timing. He had messaged me minutes after I found the second camera. Like he knew. Then, another notification popped up. A second message from James. This one had an attachment. My stomach dropped. Slowly, I tapped on it, my fingers ice cold against the screen. A photo opened. It was dark. Grainy. Blurry at first, until my brain processed what I was looking at. It was me, sitting on the couch. Earlier that night, the angle was slightly tilted, but unmistakable. It was taken from inside the house. From the second camera's position, he had been watching me. I felt a surge of cold panic rise in my throat. My eyes darted around the room, my body screaming to move, to get out. Another message popped up. "James, you should smile more." I didn't think. I ran. I never reported the listing, never left a review. But a week later, I checked Airbnb again. James's profile was still there, and his bio had been updated. "New place coming soon.